What if the most common advice that you get for fat loss is actually what's holding you back? If that's the case, forget everything you've been told. We're going to debunk some of the most common myths that you hear about fat loss. Hey everyone, it's me, Chris, here from Body Nova Fitness Coaching, and today we're going to talk about some of the most common myths with fat loss, okay? Now, I want most of you to make the distinction between losing fat and losing weight, okay? So most people think they're the same thing and they're synonymous, okay? But because most people do not handle their process right, they go for the quickest route. And so they just want to lose weight. Some of that weight winds up being muscle, which later on makes it harder to lose fat, which is what you really want. And they get down, and when they should be toned, they still have high body fat. We're going to use some of the information we get here to help you avoid losing all that weight, and most of it being muscle, it being harder to lose weight in the future, and you lose all that weight and you still don't look good. Okay, so let's starting with myth number one. Okay, weightlifting makes you bulky, which in actuality, the strength training helps you gain muscle. It helps you build shape. So again, in that scenario I was talking about where somebody's lost a lot of weight and they still don't look good, they don't look toned and stuff like that, they just actually look like a smaller, untoned version of themselves with the high body fat, okay? That's why strength training is so important. In addition to that, if you don't strength train, your body just tries to lose the weight and it doesn't try to lose fat. So when that's the case, you lose your muscle too. So when you lose your muscle too, your basal metabolic rate falls, which your basal metabolic rate is the rate as to how many calories you would burn if you just sat still for 24 hours, okay? But that's mostly dependent on your muscle mass. So if you don't strength train to at least maintain your lean body mass, your basal metabolic rate is going to fall further, which is going to make more fat loss harder, because fat loss is just basically about calories in, calories out. So if you increase your muscle mass, you increase the rate at which your body's burn calories, making it easier to put yourself into a calorie deficit, making it therefore easier to lose weight, or you can eat more calories and lose weight. Most people would find it difficult to gain enough muscle to become bulky, or they do the things where the kid that's told to gain weight and they just eat everything under the sun and they gain some muscle but they gain fat with it. They're not paying attention to proper nutritional habits and managing their calories and things properly, so they get bulky. Or with a lot of women, they worry about getting bulky, and usually it's either they're overeating, and most women do not have enough testosterone to build the muscle that would make them bulky, nor the genetics that would make them bulky. So that's where that becomes a problem. It's because you need to train hard to make your body a force to burn change, to create change, or you need to work hard to burn more calories and keep that ball rolling. And this leads me to the second tip, where people believe I can just do cardio and cardio everything off. Okay, well, while the cardio will support your calories, what supports your need to help you maintain your muscle? So you're going to have to resistance train, because your body operates on a use it or lose it principle. So if you don't give it a reason to hold on to muscle, it's going to get rid of that. And then again, if you lose muscle, you burn less, you wind up burning less calories, okay? And we want to keep it high so that when you get off of the fat loss deal there, you can be at a higher calorie intake and still not get fat. And that's the main goal of me for my clients, is to lose the weight that they want to lose the body fat they want to lose, build the muscle they want to lose, so they can have a higher maintenance calorie intake, so they can enjoy life more before returning back to their former state. So if they keep up their exercise and keep up their eating habits, not go too far off the chain, they can maintain a healthy body weight. All right, so now we're coming with the next myth. And the next myth is low-fat foods are always healthy. Okay, so that one's is another deal there, and that was started by the craze back in the 80s that fat is bad for you, when the real is that it is easier to overeat fats because they taste great. And fats are always higher in calories than 1 gram of fat. Sorry, 1 gram of fat is higher in calories than carbs or protein. So remember, 1 gram of fat is 9 calories versus 1 gram of carb or 1 gram of protein is only 4 calories. So that's going to play into it. But amongst this and amongst other things, a lot of the times when you're trying to feel people's calorie intakes, people forget that fats play a role, because fats play a role. Your body makes testosterone from fats, okay, or the cholesterol in the fats, okay. There are a lot of nutrients that need fat for you to absorb them. Vitamin D or vitamin D3, which is a popular deficiency in people, needs fats to absorb them. Your sex hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and things like that, they're all made from fats or the cholesterol inside the fats. Unfortunately, that's the way the world thinks. But when you're programming for people's nutrition and stuff like that, the things you have to understand is also trying to program for how well that person can get carbs to the right place, get carbs to muscle to be stored or into the liver to be stored. Because if it can't be stored, it's more likely to be converted into fat and stored for later in case you're in a famine, or you're famine, you're starving yourself. Okay, that's the way the body is programmed. If a person has higher body fat, okay, they don't have the tolerance that they need or the ability to use carbs efficiently. So you would bring down their carbs and up their fats. Okay, you don't never want to get rid of one nutrient. People with higher body fat, you're giving them more fat in their diet to meet their calorie needs. And then once they get leaner, you try to reintroduce them back into their diet. So that thing about fats being bad for you is just plain silly. And you want to make sure you don't eliminate your fats. What a lot of people will need to do for their health is eliminate some of the saturated fats and some of the not so good. I'm not going to say bad, because none is bad. Nutrients have a job and they do what their job is. You take some of the saturated fats and you get in more omega-3s. Get omega-3s from walnuts and flaxseed, and fish. I like to use fish oil because I can fix that remedy a little bit faster. So I'll take out, in my own diet, I'll take out some of the fats. Let's say I eat a lot of eggs. So I would reduce some of the fats from eggs, like maybe take out an egg yolk and get an egg white, or get what they call it, those egg substitutes. Okay, use the egg substitutes, and then that would allow me to have a teaspoon of fish oil, and a lot of the things in fish oil are very beneficial for your health. So the most common myths about fat loss, and this one that we just simply cannot kill: spot reduction does not work. Okay, so what that is so what people will try to do is they will try to do more ab work just to reduce the fat that they store on the belly or their legs or their arms or whatever. And really, stored fat is not a question of just getting blood flow and working that area. Fat is stored energy. So you have to make your body have to use that stored energy by eating less. Remember, fat loss is mostly a question of calories in versus calories out. You got to eat in that calorie deficit, and you have to eat less calories than you are taking in. Okay? If you don't have your diet right, it's going to be harder to lose any fat. And some people genetically store fat in certain areas. Like women genetically store more fat on their triceps and in their legs. They may have to get very lean before they can tap into those fat stores and make those fat stores go away. And again, that's part of genetic thing, a lifestyle thing, along with the nutrition thing. And that same goes for males, where we tend to store a lot more along our torso. So we may need to diet long. Even though the arms and the shoulders and legs get lean, we may need to diet or get lean enough to where it has to start taking the fat stores from our belly to get lean enough. But no matter what you do, you cannot just simply exercise more or do things to make fat go away from places that you choose. Usually based on your genetics, that's probably going to be the last to go. The next one is also really common. Most people believe, or they believe weight loss and starving have to come together. And in a lot of cases, it's mostly because people have no idea how many calories they eat, or they eat very little, but then they drink in a lot of sugary calories or calories from beverages, which adds to it, and they don't count those. Or they snack a whole lot and they don't count those. So where it is people have no idea how much they eat and where they're at. In most cases, all they would have to do is figure out where they're at, and they can play with that. What some people will do is they will eat whatever they normally eat, and they'll log everything they eat. Now, sometimes in studies this didn't work, because once people start logging in what they eat, they start correcting their behaviors. They're saying, oh man, donuts have that many calories, let me eat less. Oh, that coffee has 700 calories, let me get the small size and only have 350. So they start correcting their behaviors. So, and then on top of that, most of my clients didn't have that much focus. So what I'll usually do is I will take their weight, their body fat, and how much they intend to exercise, and then you figure out how many calories it will take to maintain their weight. Okay, so that means that calories in and calories out is equal. Next, based on their body fat, so if you have higher body fat, you can have bigger calorie deficits, and it's less likely that you'll eat up your muscle tissue, as opposed to people who are leaner. Those people that are leaner, they got to have smaller calorie deficits. So let's say body fat is high and I give you a large calorie deficit. So let's say 25, 30%. So if your maintenance was 3,000 calories, a 25% deficit would say, okay, instead of 3,000, now you're going to eat 750 calories less, 2,250 calories. And then you get your macros assigned on that based on your body fat and how much activity you do. Where the problem lies is people don't want to do all that. They don't want to be exact. So they starve themselves and they don't know where they're at. So it has to be very extreme. So they eat instead of 2,250, they may go down straight to 1,500, which would be fine for a while. But remember, your body is a crafty machine. Think of it as more like a computer and not just like some simple machine where the amount of calories that you have is just mathematical, and it doesn't have other processes and things that it needs to fill out to survive, to function well, to do all that you ask and need for it to do. So what you do is you take that deficit, you go down, you're monitoring your weight. When the weight loss slows down, remember, you always have a choice. You can exercise more or you can eat less. So if you choose eat less, then you take a smaller deficit off of that. So 2,200 can come down to 2,000. It doesn't always have to be in increments of 500. Okay, that's been misleading, and that's a sign for me. That tells me that person has never gotten someone very lean, because if you make those deficits too big, your body fights back. And we want to get that fat loss as long as possible and make that process go as smooth as possible. Okay, so you don't have to go from 3,000 to 1,500 or make very large calorie deficits or large cuts in calories. Figure out where you're at. And once you figure out where you're at and you make a deficit off of that and you do the work to get the fat loss, and then you check in maybe a month, and maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, and then you reevaluate things, and then you give yourself another deficit, however you want to create it, and then you go from there and you carry out the plan, and you're consistent about carrying out the plan. You do not need to starve yourself to lose weight. You can eat less without starving. Okay, this next one is also a big one, and anybody that knows me knows I eat very late, and it doesn't make too much of a difference. This next fat loss myth is all about eating late night. So again, and I'm going to say this again because I want this to sink in. Fat loss or weight loss is going to be more about calories in versus calories out. Okay, are you eating more than what it takes to maintain your weight? or are you eating less? When most people eat late at night, they're usually pigging out. It's a stress thing. They're stress eating and they're pigging out on a lot of foods like ice cream, candy bars, peanut butter, burgers, fries, soda. Okay, and these are foods that are very high in calories, and they eat more than overall. They eat more calories than it takes to maintain their weight. What the thing is this is why I'm so big on tracking. When I track foods, I'm making sure that I stay within my macros, because I need the protein. I need to make sure I get enough protein to hold on to muscle, to build muscle. I need to make sure I get enough fats for my testosterone levels, to make sure that I have fat soluble vitamins and things like that, that they get absorbed. I need my carbs fuel my energy. My carbs give my muscle, it can help my muscle stay full so I can look good and things like that. So I stay within my calorie intake and my macro intake. Whereas most people who do this, they're out of control. First of all, they don't know where they stand in the first place because they don't track. But secondly, they're out of control and they're eating a lot of high calorie foods, and it's not anywhere near exercise. So the body's more likely to store it because they've overeaten. If they were under eating or eating in calorie deficit, it would not matter. That if you eat in a calorie deficit, even if you eat late, it's not going to matter. And even those diets where they say, I remember back in the day, people used to always tell their clients, hey, stop eating after 6, stop eating after 8, or whatever the time that it was they stopped eating. So if they have a smaller window with which they're allowed to eat, of course, most people are going to eat less. They're not going to self-correct, whereas the studies that I would like to see with intermittent fasting, which is another subject, is I would like to see them intermittent fast but still eat the same calories, because what they're going to find is, or what a lot of studies have shown with this is, there was no difference when calories were equated for. That means if you had 3,000 calories a day, if both groups ate 3,000 calories a day, the fasting group would not receive any benefits over someone who just controlled their calories. So a lot of the gimmicks and things like that, they help you control your calorie intake. But again, the eating late, if you do not overeat, or you're eating less than your calories, because some of us might need to eat later to make sure that we get all our macros in, so things will happen, will not result in weight gain if you're eating in a calorie deficit. With the intermittent fasting, people believe that skipping meals boosts energy. So what it really is because you're eating one less meal, most people are eating less calories. Again, people are not aware of how much they eat and how they eat. So that little behavior modification will result in people eating less. And again, talking about the intermittent fasting, those studies in intermittent fasting showed that there was no weight loss benefits outside of eating less. There was some health benefits from fasting, but outside of the calories, there were no boosts in energy. Actually, what that boost of energy is now, so a lot of people are scared of cortisol. Your body is using cortisol and adrenaline to create energy. So that could be helping your body break down fat, but it could also be helping your body break down muscle, which is easier to get to muscle to break down, to create energy. You can create glucose from muscle. The process is called deamination. So the skipping meals will result in you being more flabby. Well, if you don't meet your protein intake and all that stuff like that, will result in you being more flabby, losing a whole bunch of weight, and still not looking toned, and or still having high body fat, and may also play a little bit with your health. Last but definitely not least, I know you guys was waiting for this one, but the last of the most common myths about fitness: carbs are the enemy. Okay, a lot of people talk about this, or this is a hot topic on the internet, which to me it's really not, because common sense has to walk into the room. And because most of the people talking don't understand nutrition and don't understand energy requirements, they lack the ability to realize that they're saying some dumb stuff. What it is when you have carbs, when you have proteins, when you have fats, they're taken into the body and they fulfill needs. They have roles and they fulfill needs. But again, what it is people like that need those rewards. They're stressed out, they're troubled, they have no awareness of calories and things like that. They were taught back in the day that carbs were good for you. You should have high carb diets, where what it really is based on your body fat levels. Insulin resistance, which is your ability, you're losing your ability to get carbs to the right place. You have to use more insulin to get them around so you can store them and use them as glycogen instead of pushing them into fat cells and making your fat cells bigger. So as your body fat goes up, you become more insulin resistant. Fatter people have insulin resistance, so they don't tolerate carbs well. So like I mentioned earlier, that may be a person who has to have less carbs in their diet and more fat at the same calorie intake. With that being said, at the same time, carbs are the easiest and the best fuel for your activities, your workouts, and things like that. So being able to have carbs in your diet, especially if you use them at the right time in the right way, allow you to perform well. Okay, to perform well as an athlete, perform well as a regular person during the workout. Those carbs allow you to perform well, because if you work at high intensities, which you should, because if you want to burn fat and lose weight, you want to burn more calories. So the carbs become important. And so what happens is you have to get them right. They're not the enemy, and you have to get it right. On top of that, there are different types of carbs. Okay, so there are carbs like if you drink a Coke, all right, there are that's mostly fast sugars. Okay, it's a high glycemic index. Fast sugars, they absorb very fast. Your blood sugar raises real high, so you have to produce a whole lot of insulin to wipe all that away and to get that out of the bloodstream. Okay, versus maybe eating sweet potato. What you'll want to do is you'll want to make more of your diet low glycemic index carbs, like sweet potatoes, a lot of fibrous vegetables, and things like that, as opposed to things like breads and sodas and donuts and things like that. And that's also where fats play a role. I talk about fats being the enemy. Fats also play a role because fats help you control your blood sugar. Proteins with carbs at a meal help you control your blood sugar. Okay, so there's a lot that goes into that. Most people don't recognize these facts, and they don't recognize that the rest of everything you're eating plays a role. Okay, how much of that are you eating? When are you eating it? Because the sugars, while it may seem like a bad thing most of the time, after your workout with some protein, your body doesn't need to use insulin to get those carbs into the muscles. Okay, so you can store them as glycogen. So you have a fuel source ready and available for your next workout, so you can perform well and push yourself and burn more calories to create more weight loss. So it's not that sugar is the enemy. People overeat sugars, and people eat a lot of the wrong sugars, which makes them more likely to overeat. So if you overeat anything, your body's going to store it as fat. Okay, so it's going to be more of the big picture of calorie intake, and not so much just about what you're eating. It's more about how much you're eating. Don't let these common fat loss myths hold you back or cheating the body that you've always wanted. Of the most common fat loss myths, weightlifting does not make you bulky. Okay, it helps you. It will help you build and tone your muscle. It will help you preserve your muscle, which when you're trying to lose weight or lose fat, is calories in versus calories out. Okay, so one of your biggest engines for driving of the amount of calories that you need, or driving the amount of calories that you burn, is your muscle, okay, your lean body mass. So if you hold on to your muscle, or you build more muscle, burn more calories. Most of the women are concerned with getting bulky, and those women that they are looking at, a lot of them are taking testosterone, they're taking some sort of steroid or drug to help them gain that muscle. Spot reduction does not work, okay? You instead of trying to lose weight, lose the fat from your belly, your legs, your arm, wherever it is, by working the areas more, smart resistance training program, you get on a smart nutrition program and focus on getting overall fat loss. And as you get leaner, those areas will reduce. Eating in late night does not cause weight gain. It's not so much about when you eat, but how much you eat. So if you focus, it's all about your overall calories. Are you eating more than it takes to maintain your weight? Are you picking out on sugary and fat and high fat foods that are high in calories that take you over your maintenance level? or are you eating within your calories and eating healthier foods or lower calorie foods? It's not about eating late at night. It's the overall picture of how many calories you eat. You do not need to starve yourself to lose weight. It's all about being consistent and taking smaller or sensible calorie deficit. So you have to figure out where you are and take a deficit off of what maintains you, or take some calories off of what maintains you, and that'll be based on your body fat. If you need some help with that, drop me a message here. I can point you in the right direction, or you can buy a program for me and I'll do it for you. All right, so do not need to starve yourself. You need to figure out what your maintenance is, and then take a little bit off of that deficit, and then lose the weight, do the work, and be consistent about the work you need to do to lose weight. And then once that slows down, you got a choice to make. Exercise more to recreate another deficit, or you can eat less. So you do not have to starve yourself, but you do need to eat less. Low-fat foods are not always healthier. Sometimes with low-fat food, the low-fat foods or the low-fat versions of the food are higher in sugar, especially for taste. So, and having less fat makes it more difficult for you to control your blood sugar. So that seesaw, that roller coaster of eating sugary foods and having a lot of sugar in your blood, then the insulin coming along and then wiping all that away, and you having low blood sugar and you want to eat more of those same foods, that continues. So sometimes that fat satiates you. In addition, remember, you make all of your sex hormones from fat. So happy hormonal health may be disrupted or interfered with if you don't have enough fat in your diet. In this case, cholesterol, where your body makes those hormones from the cholesterol. Keep your focus on whole foods. And sometimes you may want to take a little bit of the saturated fat out of your diet and get more omega-3 fatty acids for your health, okay? Fat is not bad. Too much calories and too much of the wrong fat can be bad for you. Carbs are not your enemy. Certain carbs can taste good, and it'll be easier to overeat those carbs, but they're the best for fueling activity, and you need them. But what you need is some sort of balance. You need to make sure that you get enough carbs in and match the carbs up to your ability to handle them. So if you have higher body fat, you're not going to be as good at handling those carbs. But you don't want to eliminate them long term because they are not bad. You just have to manage them well. So you have to make sure you get enough, but not overeating calories with them, and match it up with your body fat level and your calorie intake. You can't overeat the calories. Once you do that, that will help your cause. So you want to be able to manage your carbs. You want to eat right for your carbs. That's why part of why macros are so important, because it allows you to balance out your food intake and not go overboard or match it up to where you're currently at, fulfill your goals or your objectives. Fat is not your enemy, but you need some control. Okay, let me know if you guys have any questions about these. If you need me to dig deeper, or just even questions about setting up your program there. Until next time.